Welcome to Corona Stories from Observing the Process. I'm your host, Alex Greenberg. And before we start, I'm hoping you can help me out by supporting the show. You can do this by going to my website, observingtheprocess.com. For just $5 a month or $50 for the year, you can become a monthly supporter. This show relies on listener support to stay on the air. So if you find this content valuable, I hope you will consider subscribing. You can find a link to subscribe in the description of this podcast. If you can't support monthly, no worries. You can help out by rating and reviewing on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. You can share it with your friends, you can blog about it, or discuss it on your own podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to my channel and like this video. Thank you for supporting the show. Listeners like you make it possible. If you are looking for information on how to protect yourself and stay safe from COVID-19, please get information from the CDC or the World Health Organization. Today on the show, I had Maria Larkin. Maria is a film student who is based in Cyprus, but from America. Please welcome Maria Larkin.
In the land of China, people hardly got nothing at all.
No possessions?
And in China, they never go to church.
No religion too?
Or do magic.
Well, it's easy if you try, Dick.
Hey, Maria, how are you?
Fine, you?
Doing okay. Thank you so much for taking the time to call. What's it like in Cyprus right now? How's the weather?
The weather is quite unstable. We had 25 degrees today during the day, and now it's raining. And probably we'll have a thunderstorm.
I see. As we jump into it, do you think you could take a moment to introduce yourself? I guess we know you're based in Cyprus, what you do for work, that kind of stuff.
Sure. My name is Maria Larkin. I am currently based in Cyprus. It's a little island in the Mediterranean, which is split into two between two countries, which is official Cyprus, the Greek part, and not so official Turkish part, which is the result of the invasion from the 1974.
Yeah, I was doing some research, kind of looking up Cyprus, and my girlfriend is actually Turkish, so I was like, oh, it's like right next to Turkey. It was interesting where it's placed.
It is. I mean, we can see Turkey just from the shore, so it's really close.
Cool. So what brought you to Cyprus,
I'm studying
actually?
their film. Which is a weird place to go for film studies. People might go into Germany if we're talking about Europe, or Italy, maybe Netherlands, but I ended up in Cyprus because it's a small country, small industry, easy to get, easy to gain yourself name and some experience. Tuition is much better than in US. I pay only 4,000 euros per year.
That's very good.
US. I know. I'm in US like 50 to 60.
Yeah.
Best case.
What kind of film are you studying? Like, what do you want? Like, for me, I actually work in video production. I do a lot of commercial stuff, like TV commercials and branded content. What are you looking to do?
I am a huge fan of science fiction, but because I'm only graduating now, I still can't do anything big scope. So I'm trying to introduce small kind of parts of science fiction into our routine life. So maybe I'm filming a slice of life with some kind of science fiction sparkle, because it's ridiculous to try and to do something full scope with student budget.
Yeah, I guess for that kind of productions, you really need a lot of budget.
Yeah, so probably dramas. I like tragedies. I am not really into rom-com. I think rom-com is almost dead by 2020, and I'm not going to revive it.
Cool. So I guess to get to the topic of conversation, and in Cyprus, when did you first hear about the coronavirus?
Coronavirus. So it was around 20th of January. It wasn't still near Mediterranean or anywhere. It was still pretty much local to China and just arriving to big European hub cities such as Paris. I was a bit concerned because knowing it wasn't pandemic at that time. It was just a virus outbreak. But knowing the virus outbreak dynamics, since my parents they are scientists, I kind of felt that it will probably reach Russia really fast since Russia is close, and I had a planned trip to Russia which couldn't be canceled. So I was really concerned. I didn't think of it reaching Cyprus this fast. But probably because we are really close to Italy. It's like 1 hour and something of flight, and lots of people go there for their holidays or even weekend. I think it's the case because Cyprus is not as popular, I would say.
Yeah, you mentioned in your notes that you were preparing a documentary trip to the North Pole. So you ended up going on that trip?
I had no chances of canceling it because I already spent about 10K on that. And as for a student, it's a lot. So I risked it. And I felt really bad because we had to change 3 planes on our way. So I needed to arrive into Moscow Domodedovo, which is a huge hub full of people who are arriving from Asian countries, which at that time had this outbreak, which was resembling a catastrophe in my opinion.
Sure. But this was in January that you decided to go. So it was quite before it really got, I don't know, internationally serious.
I actually went in February.
Okay.
No, I was just planning in January, but I was really concerned because I kind of felt with my gut that in months it will be uncontrollable. It will be really uncontrollable, and it went uncontrollable. So I was talking with receiving part since they receive about 17,000 Asian people and 12,000 from China. I was talking with that part, and they were really panicking in Russia because it's a small village, 700 people, and all these people from China, they're still going and they're coughing, sneezing, and people already know about the coronavirus. So they began canceling their booking.com apartments because we don't have hotels in Russian villages. It's Russian village. So we began having these problems. And I remember when someone got ill, people panicked, and they had to actually deliver a person via helicopter to Murmansk, which is like 3 hours drive from Tereberka, basically, because Chinese lived in their apartment. They just rented a room. So it was already like really chaotic, and I was concerned. Then I was a bit relieved because Russia closed borders with China, railway, and I think also the air border a week before I arrived. But still, when I was in Tereberka, I saw Chinese people. They still kind of found their ways there.
Sure.
And they were like trying to say that they're from Korea, but I can distinguish Chinese from Korean because apparently we have a lot of Chinese students in our university in Cyprus.
It's interesting.
So I know what's Korean, what's Chinese.
So when you were there, what did the progression, like from what dates were you in Russia or the North Pole? From when to when?
22nd of February, I arrived to Russia, and 23rd, I reached the North Pole. It took me pretty much 1 day, which is fast. And I spent there a week. I tried to not really contact with other tourists because it had lots of people. Although, because it's a documentary, I needed to observe. But there are different modes of documentary, so you don't really need to ask interviews. because they were peculiar on their own. They were really bright, wearing ridiculous clothes as for the North Pole.
Mm.
So it was enough for me. Although I wanted to take some interviews and even approach someone I thought it's okay to approach. They looked really friendly. They didn't really know English, and their Russian translator told me that it's a bad idea.
Hmm.
So yeah.
It's interesting to think that you happened to be in the North Pole for a part of this pandemic. Interesting place to be, actually.
Yeah, and it was really chaotic because people in Russia, they are, I would say, the ones who panic and the ones who will be really hostile. I don't think that they would be happy to see Chinese maybe for a year because they actually eventually thought about closing the entrance for any Asian tourists into the village just to secure themselves, because you never know from where they come, and especially if they say that they're Korean but they speak Chinese. It's kind of bad. I don't know. I just felt bad for the both sides.
Right. Yeah. So looking at Cyprus, I'm curious about the evolution over, I guess it's been a full month you've been back in Cyprus now. So what has that been like? How has your daily life changed day to day?
So I returned to Cyprus, and we still think that we are safe, although already Greece had COVID and people began panicking. But still, because we had these cheap flights to Europe, Cyprus is actually an excellent hub to fly to Europe, to Middle East. Everything's really close. So people were using this opportunity to buy these cheap European tickets, like 15 euros, 5 euros, this kind of prices. And already we were asked by our unit to suspend any unnecessary trips, and all of the field trips, for example, to Italy or to Athens, were cancelled. But still, students, they were unstoppable because YOLO.
Yes.
It was really reckless.
There's some terrible photos in America as well of kids on spring break in Florida just kind of like completely ignoring the advice of the CDC and the World Health Organization.
So I was already trying to distance myself. Plus, I just arrived from Russia, and Russia at that time wasn't being really honest about having corona. It's really a Russian way of covering up. So they would reference it as influenza, but doctors, they would be really open about it's coronavirus. And even at some official websites like Russia Ministry of Health, they would publish, for example, that there is 3 confirmed coronavirus cases in Moscow. People would screenshot it, and like in our the post is gone, nothing's happening, there is no corona in Moscow. This kind of thing. It's really roots from USSR, like when we had Chernobyl, because essentially I lived in Ukraine, which is like the Chernobyl origin, and Kiev is about like 1 hour from Chernobyl or so, maybe 2 hours. So my actually family, they remembered the Chernobyl, and it was the same cover up. They wouldn't be just be honest about what's happening. Right. So I was trying to self-isolate because I didn't know what I could get in Domodedovo, honestly. And people would be really partying, going to clubs, traveling, the union lot, and everyone was coughing, sneezing. I was feeling really uncomfortable going to university because also students, they don't really care about hygiene. And our uni is not really the uni who will put sanitizers in every place. So you can find sanitizers in toilets, for example, but at that time we didn't have them everywhere, like in every classroom.
One of the questions that I always ask my guests for this show is how different cultures are handling this pandemic. So I guess you already kind of mentioned how Russia is handling it, which is an interesting perspective. But maybe you could talk a little bit about the past month, what Cyprus has been doing, and how like the people have been reacting in general, just your experience day to day.
The reaction, until we have first two cases, reaction was really mild. Nobody cared. We thought that it will just not touch Cyprus at all, which was really, really stupid. When we had first two cases, people ran into pharmacies buying masks, hand sanitizers. Thanks God they begin appearing in every class.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help. We already have people who still go to uni while coughing, sneezing, while having problems with their nose. Stay home if you feel unwell, if you feel flu. It's okay. You wouldn't miss anything much. It was still the beginning of semester, and we already were having pandemic. So please stay home, which they did not. And thus, after first two cases, we already began having a huge question about American students, because we have a global semester program here, and they visit us to study medicine and study media, some other disciplines. So US called back most of Americans in the first week of COVID spread in Cyprus. But we were still having events, so clubs, you can still go to coffee shop. Like when we already were having 5 confirmed COVID cases, coffee shop opened just near uni, and we had more than 100 people partying there, although we had restrictions 75 plus in one place. So nobody really, followed the rules, even though we already had it here. People would do fireworks at night, because Cyprus, they're this kind of people who do fireworks at night. It's just probably like children from schools. I don't know. People will go to churches, his icons, or how they are called. I just remember already like 10 confirmed cases. I passed by the church while going to shop, and I see all these people who are 50, 60, 70-year-olds in the church. And I felt really uncomfortable, because do you think they sanitize after each person kisses this icon or whatever it is?
You saw people doing that? You saw people like kissing a statue or whatever?
I did.
Oh, man.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I think different generations, they handle or react to the situation differently, I guess. Would you say these are all mostly older people that were kissing the statue? Yeah. Mostly
like 50 to 70 years old. My neighborhood is like this. Cyprus is really religious country, I would say, like super religious.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What do you happen to know what religion most people follow?
Greek Orthodox.
Greek Orthodox. Interesting.
And for example, when you pass by church, even if you're in the car or in the bus, they'll do this crucifix sign. I don't know how it's called again, because I'm really not religious, so I'm just trying to explain. I'm doing my best, but they do this sign. Like I think we also have it in Russian church and in Catholic church, so it's the same. It's
the
just
cross,
this
maybe,
weird sign.
or
yeah, the cross sign with the hand.
Sure. Interesting.
So they do this, like even if you're passing by the bus, they just do this. And I think Cyprus is the only country, although now we are on the curfew until 13th of April. Even now, you can attend christenings if there are not more than 10 people. So we're still allowed to do christenings. You can still do marriages again 10 people rule, and you can still do burials, funerals.
Interesting.
I don't know. I don't know if we cannot wait until 13th of April to do christenings. I don't know if it's okay to bring people who might be asymptomatic, 10 plus people in charge to do this ritual. I don't know if it's actually clever. I think it's one of the only countries which actually allow that for now, especially when we have the law of curfew.
Okay. One of my final questions as we start to wrap up is your thoughts on the media and how the media is handling the situation. Here in America, I feel it's there's just a lot of
Secret
information
media.
being thrown at me constantly, and I think it's affecting a lot of people's mental health. It's just like too much information to take in. So I'm wondering what your experience in Cyprus has been.
Sorry, I think something happened with the connection. I didn't hear your question.
Sure, I'll ask one more
Can
time.
you repeat it?
So your experience with the media, kind of, in America, there's been so much information being thrown at us every day. It just feels like there's something new to learn every day. So I'm kind of wondering what your experience has been in Cyprus.
Cyprus is small and we don't have much media at all. So Cyprus, I would say, is a trilingual country. It's English because we are ex-British colony. It's Greek, of course, and it's Russian. We have a huge Russian diaspora here. I don't know Greek, but I understand English and Russian. So I would say that Russian and English points of view are really different on the corona outbreak. For example, Cyprus Mail, which is probably the biggest outlet in English, their view is a bit ironic, sometimes really sarcastic. They're not afraid to make statements. Russian is a little bit too Russian. I would say that it just resembles what we have in Russia exact way. Although I found it really useful because they have this chronology. So each day they kind of do conclusions of who's ill. Of course, we don't know like who's who and stuff. Although the island's literally like less than a million of people. I think it's like 500 people on the island. But they say the area from where is the person and stuff, and they try to also announce about any governmental movements in terms of laws, because now they're trying to change the law because Cyprus didn't have such a crisis for a long time, to be honest. Still, our laws and everything is centered around the times when we had pounds. And now we have euros. So, for example, the fine for not abiding the rule of curfew is for 150 Cypriot pounds, which is in existence, I think, after 2005. So lots of changes to be made, I would say. And our media is not as bad. Some, of course, they're like, the voices are panicking. You read the materials and you understand that the person who was writing wasn't really doing it objectively, having own fears and motivations. I find it unprofessional, but I also understand because it's Cyprus. We had never seen anything like this. For example, if it was Ukraine or Russia, they had experiences everything, basically. Cyprus is really unprepared, to say at least.
I see. So for my last question, I'm curious what the future holds for you. I know kind of school is on pause. What do you foresee happening for the future for yourself?
So what future holds for me? I think that the connection is unstable. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so what future holds for me? I'm finishing my university and I'm planning to apply for film festivals which are being postponed or being held online. It's a bit dramatic for the industry because I would say that film industry is the industry of the comfort. And now people are being comforted by all the films which are accessible. But I'm not sure that it's the industry which is going to recover fast after the corona outbreak because lots of people have little idea about what it is really to make a film. It's not just taking a camera and going into the field and hey, we're making a film. It's sometimes 2 years, sometimes 3 years of planning. And the bigger the film, the bigger the scope, the bigger the loss because so many projects are being postponed. And for Cyprus, which is actually an emerging hub for the global industry, our island is super small. So you can change locations efficiently and really fast. For example, I'm in Nicosia, so it would take me 20 minutes to drive to the mountains where we have snow. And it will take me 40 minutes to drive to Larnaca when we have open sea.
That's actually super useful for, getting different background shots, different location,
Yeah, because in States, you would do one scene on one location one day.
Yeah, true. Oh.
For example, recently we had the film with Nicolas Cage shot here. I think it's called Jiu-Jitsu.
Really?
And it was
Love
done
Nick
really
Cage.
fast. Yeah, we had him here during summer. And we also have Steven Bernstein coming here, Timur Bekmambetov, all the big names actually, which is surprising because Cyprus wasn't really a hub even 2 years ago. It's just taken after Malta right now and really rapidly. I'm happy for that.
Have you
but
been
also
to
because
the...
Cyprus is such, I would say, place which depends on the seasonal place for film. Now we're losing one season, which is spring, which is the most lucrative and the most comfortable in terms of filmmaking, because during summer we have 45 plus Celsius degrees. Yeah.
Oh, wow. It gets very hot.
And yeah, it's impossible to film, to be honest. It's actually impossible to be outside until it's evening.
Do you guys have waves
and
there at the ocean, like by the
dry,
seaside?
And basically, like, you can't do anything, and it won't be good for your equipment neither. I just can't imagine even small crew of 45 people doing anything during summer. So we will not, usually during summer, we don't have anything, or maybe we shoot in the hangars, like with Nicolas Cage. It was done in the hangar. So summer is not the best season for the filming. We had lost spring. We don't know what will happen in September to November period, and then we have winter, which is rain nonstop, and it's not really suitable for filming outside neither. So probably Cypriot industry will receive a really bad shot from Corona.
I see.
And I feel really sad and bad for many colleagues. I actually gained a really good position in local production house, and I lost it because of Corona, and many people lost their jobs in the industry, and there is no way for us to make any money for now. And I feel like government will not really support the film professionals, because for now there's already a petition. We're trying to actually gain some attention, because of course I have hotel industry here, which will be supported really greatly and will be back on track soon. We have cyber industry, which will be back even faster, because cyber industry doesn't really require you being outside of your apartment sometimes. But film industry is the other story, really. And I also plan to go to Australia for a gap year. So I don't know if I'm actually going to Australia, because Australia is also heavily affected by the COVID right now. And long haul flights, they sound a bit terrifying as for now. Yeah, like my future is really now dependent on how fast we deal with the COVID, how people are obedient with the rules. Because even now I can hear people just walking on the streets and making some noise. Although we have a curfew and they need to carry a special paper with them. If police ask, they need to give the paper. There are like 8 reasons that are allowable. For example, going to shop, going to pharmacy, walking your dog, and etc. So I'm not sure that they're walking their dogs based on the sounds. And because of them, we might have actually absolute curfew like in Italy. So we won't be even able to go out with a dog or anything. And the more people are not abiding the laws, the more we will have cases of COVID and the longer it will take for us to recover. So really stay at home.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much for all of the information. It was really good to chat with you, Maria. Thank you so much for being on the call. Boom, that's it. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this podcast valuable, there are many ways you can support it. The best way is by going to my website, observingtheprocess.com. For just $5 a month or $50 for the year, you can become a monthly supporter. This show relies on listener support to stay on the air. So if you find this content valuable, I hope you will consider subscribing. You can find a link to subscribe in the description of this podcast. If you can't support monthly, no worries. You can help out by rating and reviewing on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. You can share it with your friends, you can blog about it, or discuss it on your own podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to my channel and like this video. Thank you for supporting the show. Listeners like you make it possible. If you are looking for information on how to protect yourself and stay safe from COVID-19, please get information from the CDC or the World Health Organization. Also, if you enjoyed the intro and outro music, it was made by my brother, Danny Greenberg. You can go and check out his beats on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, or SoundCloud. He goes by the name Estoric, Estoric. All right, that's it for now.
This podcast was recorded on March 28, 2020.